know that I am here. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep on saying words and test and words and test until people sort of rock up. Because I've done a lot of research on this one. And I think I've found something pretty big, which could be quite good. But I just need to make sure there's people here in the first place. Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to the stream. So, this is going to be stream number 2 of the day. Because the first stream was sort of Buendia-ish and Spertsyan-ish and all that kind of stuff, and we were having a look at all the various deals that Leeds United may be in the process of getting involved with, which I thought was quite fun and interesting and all that stuff. But I've done a hell of a lot of research in the hour and however much since the last stream, because there was a little bit of talk about, well, if Leeds United are interested in Spurgeon, how do we realistically sign him, because that can't realistically work. But said research has led to a route through which Leeds United can, in fact, get Eduard Spertsyan in, and not only get him in, but get him in for free. So I've had a look at all of the various sort of directions in which it could happen, and I'm going to sort of talk through it. So, what I was not aware of when I did the previous stream, if I can find it, was Baron Cross's piece from yesterday on the fact that, well, not yesterday, but like 5 in the morning, which, to be fair, let me off, in which he discussed the Eduard Spertsyan move. Specifically, it was this section here. Spertsyan is more of a conventional number 10. His goal involvement with Krasnodar, admittedly only in the Russian top flight with the country's clubs barred from UEFA competitions, has been impressive for several seasons. He has 73 goal contributions in 123 outings for his club. He's another target who could end up being a focus for Leeds before the window closes. Farke briefly worked with Spurgeon during his 3-month spell as a boss of Russian side Krasnodar. I've heard from the Krasnodar side that he was a very, very big fan of him and all that kind of stuff. Due to the winter break and subsequent invasion of Ukraine, Farke did not get to manage a match for Krasnodar, which is fair enough. It's a good reason to sort of go away and leave. But, this is a big but. In fact, before I get into all the technical stuff, I'm just going to remind you about Spertsyan and how he plays. So, so far this season, 4 goals, 6 assists in 6 matches. It's pretty fucking good. Just under 500 minutes, which means that he's played the vast majority of this time. Over the past 12 months-ish, he's played something like 88% of all minutes for Krasnodar, which is going to be very important. We need to keep that in mind. So, specifically, 11 goals, 6 assists last season, in 28 matches, of which he started 27. The Russian league has 30 games of football in it, and he was subbed off a couple of times, but that's completely fine. The complication around everything is that people were looking at it and saying, how exactly do Leeds United get this signing done, given the fact that there is a sanctions regime going on? You don't want to give money to Russian bodies. I'll find the specific wording of it. So the specific phrasing of it is that you cannot make funds available to a Russian entity. In this instance, if you pay a transfer fee, then you're making funds available to a Russian entity. If the player is... hold on, I've got that a bit wrong. So you can't do that if the other club, in this case Krasnodar, is owned or controlled by a designated person, the designated people being the ones under the sanctions. In this case, very probably they are. I've not dived into it too much, but they are going to be a Russian oligarch. They are going to need it. Therefore, the most effective mitigation is to avoid the transfer fee altogether. So, this is where we bump into 2 separate challenges. One, would you be allowed to register him as a player based on is he good enough and all the work visa stuff and all that kind of thing? 2, would you even be able to get him out of Russia? I'll deal with number 1 first, which is the sort of, are you able to register Eduard Spertsyan at all? So, I've had a deep, deep dive into the criteria through which you need to sign a player. Specifically, it's a points-based system. This is what people have been asking. Points-based for immigrants, all that kind of thing. I'm not getting into that in this stream, whatever. In which you need to get 15 points for a player to be allowed to sign for your club. Or at least a player needs to be eligible for 15 points worth. So, remember that I said he had something like 88% of minutes when he was over at Krasnodar over the last 12 months, which is dealt with in this one. Players' League domestic minutes. Granted, the number of points set out in respect of their domestic league minutes, 88 to 89%. Russia is a band 4 league, which means that he gets 5 points towards his sort of thing there. So will someone keep count with the number 5. And we're just going to count up his points, and we'll see if he gets over that threshold of 50. And see if we are able to sort out the visa side of things, and then we will look at if we're able to sort of deal with the whole shenanigans specifically surrounding the contract. So we've got 5 points for his domestic minutes, because it's a band 4 league, which means that it's not the highest quality of football, but that's completely fine. That's not what matters. He's not Russian, he's Armenian. Let's get this fucking right, Chris. Because this is the bit that matters. We need to sort of clear everything up. Aggregated FIFA World Ranking of his national association. Armenia is 101 in the world in terms of their football ranking, which means that he doesn't necessarily get a ton of points for this one, but he's played more than 90% of minutes, I believe, for Armenia in the last period of time. Therefore, add 2. Someone that's keeping count, add 2 to the number of points. Is there links with them not seeing this anywhere? Yes, from Beren Cross in The Athletic. And also from the Armenia side, well, sort of the Armenia side, the Russia side. So it's looking like there is, at the very least, a bit of a link, and I'm just sort of proving that it is a doable transfer regardless. Anyway, on this, you need to find their specific ranking in the world table. Armenia, 101st in the world. There we go. So that's another 2 points. Someone keeping count. 5, 7 points. Any North Koreans available? You're really funny. No. And then you move on to continental minutes. This is what gets it very, 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 very difficult, right? So I wouldn't call this a panic buy, considering we were also looking at him in January. To me, panic buy screams that you didn't plan it in the slightest. This is one that has been sort of lined up previously. But in terms of continental minutes, he plays at a club in Russia, despite not being Russian, even though that's a part that no one seems to be actually paying any attention to. Therefore, he's not been in any continental competition at a club level. Not his fault, but he's not played in any continental competition. Then you get to final league position of his player's last club. This one, in this specific case, would be Krasnodar. Where did Krasnodar finish in the league last season? They won the title in Band 4, which gives them another 3 points. We're up to 10 out of 15, which is pretty damn good, and we're doing that without any of the European competition, which he would have had if the whole war thing wasn't happening, but we'll get to that in a few minutes' time anyway. Where are we? Okay, that's fine. Then continental progression of the last club doesn't count, doesn't matter. Then the final chunk is the league quality of the player's current club, which is just sort of the standard of league that they are playing in, which in this case is a Band 4 league. Add 6. There we go. Eduard Spertsyan, 16 points out of 15 points, gets a work visa to play football in the UK. Fantastic, wonderful. That's that much sorted out. Then you get to the complicated question of how exactly do you get him out of Russia? Because of the whole sanctions-y thing. So I'm specifically going to read through it again. The payment of a transfer fee would be classed as making funds available to a Russian entity. This transaction could be a direct breach of UK sanctions if the club is owned or controlled by a designated person, a determination that requires extensive and difficult due diligence that I can't be bothered doing between two streams, but I will just assume if sanctions apply, bosh. It will also potentially do reputational damage, but not in this instance, because there is a rule. There is a cheeky little regulation that I have had a little bit of a deep dive into. So if I quickly have a look for it. Initially, in 2022, 2022, there was a rule that came out as a result of the invasion of Ukraine, which was that anyone in Russia or Ukraine was able to just unilaterally suspend their contracts and just say, no, I don't want to be there right now. This only applied to foreign players. So if you were a Ukrainian player playing in Ukraine, you weren't able to suspend your contract. If you're a Russian player playing in Russia, you can't suspend your contract. You need to be a foreign player in those leagues. However, the initial application of this only applied as far as, I believe, off the top of my head, as the end of that season, so it would have been 2023. And I'm just very quickly going to have a look at if I can get the actual document up. So, the regulation on the status and transfer players, FIFA edition. That's not quite the right edition. That's not quite the right edition. I'm going to have to find it. There we go. So I have done some digging, and I have very, very specifically found the 2025 July edition of the regulations on the status and transfer of players, because that's what applies here. And in the table of contents, you scroll down and spot temporary rules addressing the exceptional situation deriving from the war in Ukraine, because I figured we might as well check the current version of this regulation to see if it still applies. So here we go. In essence, it is now extended to include this coming season, which means that until July 2026, anyone that has a contract with a Russian club or a Ukrainian club is able to suspend their contract. So without prejudice to paragraph 2 below, the annex applies to employment contracts of an international dimension, so that's, again, foreign stuff, between players or coaches associated to the UAF or FUR, that is specifically Russia, Ukraine. Notwithstanding the provisions of these regulations, and unless otherwise agreed between the parties, a contract can be unilaterally suspended until the 30th of June 2026 by the player or the coach. To suspend it, they need to sort of inform their club by... Oh, damn. By apparently the 1st of August, but I didn't know that that was the case. Minimum length, etc., something, etc., blah, 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 blah. Registration, again, you can register with a maximum of 4 clubs, protection of minors, all this kind of stuff. So, theory. In the event that he has made clear in the past that he would potentially end his contract in the next 12 months, Spertsyan is no longer an attached player. Ish, sort of. He would need to go through the process of formally rescinding that contract first, which is a fairly important step to take. But in that instance, Leeds United do not need to pay a fee to a club in Russia, which means that we get around all of the sort of sanctions stuff. Val, you can ask if this is BS. It's been discussed as a link by Baron Cross, and I have just run you through not only documents, but documents that were put out by the FA in terms of if he could legally get sort of a contract over in the UK, and by FIFA as to whether we would be able to get him. There is a world in which we can sign Eduard Spertsyan on a free rather than for a £20 million fee. Again, this is having a few assumptions in place. One, that he has already informed his club that he would like to move. 2, that he does want the move. And 3, that that is the move that we choose to do. But there are lots and lots and lots and lots of sides of this that point to the fact that there is a pretty damn good chance that we can get this one done, and we can get this one done without having to pay out of the nose for a player that is, I think, a very, very high quality footballer. I think a lot of people have looked at him and gone, I'm not entirely convinced. For me, I am entirely convinced. I've seen him play a decent bit because I've specifically looked into him. I've seen what's sort of been going on around the contractual bits. I've seen all of his numbers, and I think he's a very, very good player. If he hasn't indicated he wants to suspend, how is it buy possible if we can't pay them? That's the thing. That's why I'm saying that there's lots and lots of ifs and maybes and stuff. But if he has in any way indicated that there is a chance he's going to suspend that contract, he's able to do so. And I think with the links that have been around him, it may have been a case of waiting for a club to go to. In terms of buying, That's where it gets complicated. In terms of a transfer fee, it gets very difficult. There's a couple of ways we could do it. There is the potential opportunity to say, okay, what we do instead is wait for the sanctions to go away and then we transfer the money to Krasnodar, which is probably not going to be too good on their end, but it's that or lose him on a free next year. Or you see if their owner is a designated person on the sanctions list, which I'm just going to check. Sergei Galitsky is the owner of Krasnodar. So I will see if he is sanctionable. This might take a moment because I'm having to actually make sure that everything adds up. See the individual program lists below. Okay, their owner is sanctioned until basically end of war, as far as I can see. Suspended contract, like a loan, would he have to go back? Not in the event of a loan, but in the event of a loan, we would still likely have to pay them money, which is a potential problem. In terms of the attributes he's got, he's just very, very good. Goal scorer, which is very nice, very good at finding a pass that works. I think 10 goal involvements in 6 games is very, very telling of the sort of quality that we're looking at, and I think it's a move that, if we got done, would be very good. I know a lot of people are looking at the Russian league right now, and they're going, that's not great. But at the same time, it's a decent fucking club. Krasnodar. At a decent level. He's their captain, so they're clearly that invested in him. If we go for him, do we still go for him? I don't believe so, because I think they would fill the same sort of role in a squad. But it's hard to say what the priority of the two would be. If he's a 10 left-sided player, we're still short on the right. I don't know if he's 10 left-sided. I think he's a bit right. I'll have to have a look. He's right-footed, which that doesn't really say anything. Eduard Spertsyan, position. He's played on the left and the right, so it does sort of open that up. So I think him plus a right winger basically solves the issues. Personally speaking, I'm super excited for this one. Same, to be honest. I think we've got 2 deals potentially on the horizon. I don't know which ones. It might not be a case of doing Spurgeon. It might not be a case of managing it on a free if he's, again, not filed that specific paperwork. But would this guy not be more similar to BEK? A little bit, I think. But then again, you've got the issue of El Canous wouldn't take up a place in the squad list, which probably makes it a little bit nicer. You think we can get BEK? We can, but he's a £35 million player. But then again, if we are able to work out getting this guy on a free, if he's able to suspend his contract, there's a pretty damn good chance that you're able to get that one done. Ins and outs of this sound too complicated. Could Underwood sort it out? To be clear, Underwood isn't like an international migration lawyer. That's not his job in this. His job is to identify the talent and say, let's make a move for this person or this person or this person or this person. That's where the sort of complexity comes with it. Is him or Hamer? Any update on Hamer? I know that Hamer is playing today, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything, because Jorginho Rutter played for us basically right before he moved, which doesn't say that Hamer is on the move. That kind of adds a little bit of difficulty. Anyway, I don't have too long right now because I've got my next shift in no time at all. Loan with obligation to pay at the end of the war. Yeah, that'd do it. Why not? Could play him on the right and he cuts it on his left. Yeah, that also kind of works. I mean, he's right-footed, so I don't know. Anyway, El Canou's been priced up by Leicester. That'll be my guess too. But I'm going to end the stream in a moment because I don't got much time. But I'm going to redirect everyone over to Joe's Chelsea versus Fulham watch-along. And I'm going to... You know what we'll do? I've worked out what I'm going to send you over shouting at him, which is quite fun. If I'm able to find the right tab. I can't find the right tab. So what we're going to do, we're going to raid Wayneman, and we're going to raid him with the specific message, what do you think of Annex 7 of the regulation on the status and transfer of players? And I want to see the response on that one. And if as many of us spam that as possible, that'd be fantastic. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed the stream. If you did, please pop a like on it, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And I will see you at some point later. Maybe over on Big Up, maybe over here. I don't know. We'll see. Doodaloo. Many of us spam. Ah! Didn't mean to do that. That was smooth, wasn't it? In a bit.